Mully and Haugh, Chicago Sports Radio 6-7 of the Score. Always fun to talk to our friend Jarrett Payton, and he joins us now on the Score Hotline, powered by IBEW Local 9, Chicago's original powerhouse since 1892. Jarrett, good morning. How are you?
Mully Haugh, what's going on, fellas, man? I'm so juiced up, ready for this. I couldn't even sleep last night because I was waiting to talk to you guys.
Really? Wow, that's great.
Yeah, that's
I thought
awesome.
you'd be up on that because you were traveling back from New York after being there to videotape Taylor Swift.
You know what, Haugh? Everybody's trying to recreate the wheel, but I already created it, so I'm good. I broke the internet and I'm moving past it. Everybody, shout out to Diana Rossini for trying to, get her coming into the stadium. I was like, man, I did that already, man. We got this.
Yeah. My wife actually wanted to watch Monday Night Football just to get glimpses of her. She was curious about how, and I said to her, like, that's not a big story anymore. And sure enough, she's all over the thing and I'm looking like an idiot. I mean, she was everywhere.
And that Sunday night game drew an audience that reflected all the casual sports fans that are now huge NFL fans because of their Swifties.
But, they had commercials for her movie. They took full advantage of it as much as anything else that happened. It's extraordinary how big a story that is and how it seems to be helping both her and him, for God's sake. I don't know if these two crazy kids have a chance, but they're getting a lot of publicity.
They're getting a lot of publicity. I mean, when you put two strong forces together, kind of like Mully and Haugh, I mean, anything's possible. Ratings are going to go through the roof.
We are not romantically connected. Please don't get that started.
Thanks, Jarrett.
That's a rumor.
Jarrett, let's talk football. All right, so I have to guess. I have to think that as a former running back, as football royalty in this city that understands the beauty of the running game when it's working well, I can't imagine you approved of this 4th and 1 shotgun formation and the read option in that situation. How did you view that call and that situation?
I've been going back and forth on it. I remember just sitting down watching. I just didn't like the play call. Didn't mind going for it because in my head, I know what Flus was saying, that, he was really trying to, go with this offense, have faith in this offense, and listen to Justin talk about it. Either way you go, you were hoping that either your offense was going to be able to get that first down, or if you did kick the field goal, right, that you would go to your defense and be like, listen, guys, like, we need to stop. Like, whatever happened earlier in the game, forget about it. We need to stop right now and figure it out. Going with the offense, me being an offensive guy, I liked it. I just didn't like the play call. Anytime that you're lining up in the shotgun and you're 5 to 6 yards back and having to figure out how to, I heard Coach Wanstead talk about a lot of things can go wrong in that situation when you're that far back. And but also on the read option, like, I know what Justin was talking about. I just wanted the ball to be in his hands. Let him determine. He's the best player on the football field at that moment. Let him be the guy to be able to get you that first down. And if it was a read option, I don't care what the end did. Like, you're still fast enough than everybody. I would have taken it and just said, forget this. I'm getting the first down, and let's run this clock out. Let's figure out a way to let them blow the timeout. So, and not a fan of the play call, but I was cool that they went for it on 4th and 1.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem if they tried to play some power football. I really felt like, what's the point of being 6 yards back? And I really, honestly, when he moved it, when they were trying to get him to jump and he moved up to the line, if he could have just tapped the center and gotten the ball, he'd have made that going away. It was almost like they jumped back when he went up to the line and then calling a timeout and then deciding to go and then coming up with that play. It just seemed insane to me.
Mully, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to try to cut you off like 4 times, because I was feeling the exact same way. When you go up that first time before the timeout, like, yo, just snap the ball. Like first sound, let's go and let's get this first down. Let's get the push. I mean, it just didn't make sense to me. And it kind of, once the timeout happened, I'm going, holy cow. Does anybody know what's going on right now? Are they trying to figure this thing out right now? Like, this is crunch time. In this moment, you're looking like things are kind of breaking down. You don't know what to do. And that was a little disheartening for me. But that whole entire, I watched the game again yesterday, and then you get to that fourth quarter, man. And it was just like, I mean, things were just off. Everything was off. Justin didn't look like the same person that he looked early in those first three quarters. The play calling was a little conservative. Defensively, they broke down, because even on defense, looking at how they went into that game, you guys, with the back end of that defense of all the guys that were out, and you're playing with some guys that are trying to kind of pick up the slack, right? Like next man up mentality, and how they held Russell Wilson in that first three quarters, man, was pretty amazing, with no true pass rusher really getting after Russell Wilson. You got to give them credit, but the hardest part for me was watching at the end, because this team has lost 14 games in a row for this season. They don't know how to win. They don't know how to finish. Mm-hmm. And so it didn't give me any confidence that they were going to be able to finish that game off. And it's hard. And I think the only way to gain that confidence is to buckle up and have your leaders inside of your locker room say, listen, we got to figure this thing out and get it done. But I didn't have confidence late in the game that they were going to pull this one off.
Jarrett, they can't afford any distractions, and yet the Chase Claypool situation lingers. Today could be his last day with the Bears if he's cut by 3 o'clock, like Brad Biggs suggested, at 7. How do you think the Bears have handled it to this point, and what do you think happens next?
I'm not a fan of how they've handled it so far. I understand, and we all listen to Coach Flus and going through his press conferences. He keeps everything close to the vest. We hear a lot of stuff on repeat over and over again. Totally understand. I think it's been hard for him, because he's trying to straddle this line of being a player's coach and not calling out his guys. When I was listening to Mike Tomlin after their game, and he was like, dude, changes are going to happen. Like, we didn't play good enough. Like, I was in my head going, I want to hear that. Like, I want to hear that here in Chicago. Like, we're not playing. We didn't execute enough. We didn't play good enough. Like, someone's got to be held accountable. You don't hear that. And so when I think of the situation, and even before I came on this morning, I Googled Bears. The first, I would say, 8 stories are about Chase Claypool. A guy that, like, whether or not he was right or not, probably he was right about they're not using him the right way. I totally understand that. But I keep going back to week 1 against the Packers. I mean, he had to go into the locker room, into his peers, and tell them, like, sorry for the way that he was playing on the football field, that he wasn't giving enough effort. Like, I can only imagine what that feeling's like, to go into the guys that you're going to battle with every single week and say you're not giving max effort. Like, I know you're going to mess up here every once in a while. That's standard when it comes to the NFL, because everybody's so good. You're not always going to be perfect. I get that. But not giving your all and having to see that, sit up and talk to your teammates about that. He didn't do enough. He didn't do enough to be able to warrant that I'm that guy. I need to get more touches. No, he didn't. And if you're going to be a distraction, then definitely you got to be out of that locker room. And I know for Poles, it's probably hard for him, because we all know with GMs, when you go and you make a move like that for a guy, especially when you draft a guy, you bring a guy in, you don't want to seem like you made a mistake. But it's better off to cut your losses and not keep guys around for so long, right? I mean, the Shea McClellan example, right? There's, like, at some point, you just got to, like, cut your losses. And then most of the time what happens is guys leave here in Chicago and they end up going somewhere else and start balling out. So it just blows my mind how that always happens. But Chase, listen, if he played his last down football here in Chicago, I can understand why. But there are already too many distractions inside that locker room and things they need to figure out. It speaks volumes that they told him to stay away.
Another problem we have this week is they're heading to Washington. Ron Rivera, everybody knows Chico from his days with the Bears, and even as an assistant, the last time they got to a Super Bowl. And now the Bears go in there, and you keep saying, is there anything you bring with you about what you were doing offensively? Because you finally scored some points, had a nice afternoon. Sadly, it just wasn't enough.
And Mully, it was so much fun watching. Like that was the first 3 quarters. I was like, this is what I've been waiting for.
Right.
Like Justin looked so comfortable. He looked like he was decisive with where he was going with the football. He was ripping it out of his hands. I mean, making the good reads. I mean, everything. He was dictating the tempo of the game. Like anytime that he's moving, defenses have to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? Like literally, what are we going to do? Are we going to sit back a little bit and then give him the opportunity to run if he wants to? Or are we going to go up and try to pressure him and then come up and then the back end is open? There's going to be holes there. I mean, he was controlling the tempo. And I feel like that should have been the key from the jump, from start of the season, of letting him dictate the tempo of the game, getting the running game going a little bit here and there, couple design runs. Doesn't have to be too many. Keep the defense honest. And then him ripping the ball down the field and giving it, dispersing it to different players on the field too. I mean, he was sharing the football with a lot of different guys. I love seeing that. I think it's hard now. I can only imagine after a tough loss like they had on Sunday to now on a short week with all this stuff still going on inside of that locker room at Hallis Hall, to then bumps and bruises to go play on Thursday night and find a way. And defensively, we know the Commanders, they can play on defense. And Sam Howell, I don't know, man. I watched him against Philly. He can sling the ball too. So this is not going to be an easy out for them to be able to get this win and to stop this losing streak. They're going to have to play some really good football. And Luke Getsy's going to have to find a way to get Justin going early on and see if they can kind of recreate what they did on Sunday on Thursday night.
So the Commanders have a strength of the defensive front with all the first-round draft picks, and you know that could be a potential mismatch. And you also sense that Ron Rivera and just that defense is not going to give the Bears as many opportunities in man coverage as the Broncos did and his teams do, because that's where Justin Fields will thrive. So how do you expect the Bears to counter, Jarrett, when they play Washington offensively on Thursday night, and what do you expect to happen?
Well, I'm hoping. I mean, they don't. The one thing that I've always seen to be able to help and slow down anybody trying to get after the quarterback or a pass rush is run the football, especially on the edges, running right at guys at those ends, those rush linebackers. If you can find a way, they hate putting their hands in the ground. They don't like having to fight off blocks. But the Bears, they really run out of the eye. They don't run a lot of wide zone. I mean, everything is out of the gun. So I think it's going to be tough. I mean, you literally are putting a lot of pressure on that offensive line, running out of the gun all the time, whether it's read option, unless you can find a way for Justin to get cooking. And we haven't seen one of those games from him yet this season where he is taking over with his legs. This might need to be the Thursday night game that he does that and takes over. But I always said running the football effectively will definitely give Justin what he's looking for, especially on the outsides. If you can do that, they got to stack men in the box. Then he's going to get the opportunity to take those shots down the field. Getting him in a rhythm early throws, moving him outside the pocket, building his confidence early, to me, shows that this young man, he has the ability to be special, man. What we saw in those first 3 quarters, I mean, with being pass protection, when he can sit back and kind of like decipher what he wants to do, I know he was smiling inside like, man, I need this all the time. Like if I had this all the time, I would be good. If they can do that, then it'll give them opportunity to win on Thursday, but I still think it's going to be tough.
They got Nate Davis back for that game, and now Tevin Jenkins, probably another game away, probably looking more toward they got a 21-day time period, but I would imagine maybe the Vikings game, something like that. So eventually they're going to get healthier on the offensive line. It's anyone's guess how long it's going to take for the secondary to get healthy again. But when you're hit in 2 kind of pinpoint positions, it really leaves a mark.
Yeah, it does. It leaves a mark, Mully, but it also, especially more on that back end of that defense, right? Where what you really need, if you have some young guys that are out there that are, playing their first meaningful football in the NFL, and then next thing you know, you don't have, that defensive line to get after the quarterback. I mean, it puts a lot of stress on the back end of that defense, man. It's not easy. So I don't know where this pass rush is coming from. We haven't really seen most of it. 2 sacks all season? You gotta got to find a way. That's where it comes from. And then let's not even forget the linebackers as well. We haven't seen them take over games and do anything because they're fighting off blocks all the time. I mean, what makes a really good linebacker is that defensive line and that pass rush to be able to say, listen, we're going to take guys off you. You go do what you do. Like a guy like Tremaine Edmonds, who is a baller, but hasn't been able to really seen those skill sets kind of pan out so far because of the issues up front. And so I say it every single time I'm on this show, both sides, line of scrimmage, offense and defense, you have to be able to win there and dominate there if you're going to win games. And I think that's one of the big reasons why we've seen this team struggle throughout this season and also on this 14-game losing streak.
Good stuff, Jarrett.
Jarrett, thanks a ton. Appreciate it, bud.
Hey, appreciate you guys, man. You guys are better than Travis and Taylor. You guys are a better match.
Thank you for recreating the wheel.
Oh,
as you
my
said.
God. That's awesome.
Good stuff, Jarrett.
That's Jarrett Payton.